not that advanced.
I know, please don't work.
Okay. You don't need a book. What do you need? Right now you need a piece of paper.
I agree with that statement.
Okay, I'll give you guys 10 more seconds to get settled. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Folks, I will request, hey, there's a lot of people in this classroom. We do need to keep our voices down. So keep the side conversations to a minimum so we can move forward. So we're going to do 5.2 and 5.3 in the book. We're going to talk about extinctions. What's an extinction? Yes?
When something dies off and there's no more of its kind.
When something dies off and there's no more of its kind. Anyone want to add to that? Pretty good definition. In fact, you should know what it is already. So I'm not even going to write down the definition. Are extinctions natural and normal?
Sometimes.
Yes, they are a natural, normal part of ecology, of evolution. If you look at our tree of life, as we get new species, so I'm just like drawing a species branching off here. Some of them go on to do really well, to have lots of branches that are all still around with us. Other ones though have these branches which terminate, right? They go extinct. So you have like dinosaurs down here and things like that are no longer around. So if this is present day, we have some extinct guys. Extinct. Here's a quiz question for you, see if anyone knows this. Does anyone know the term for a species that is still with us today?
Non-living species.
A not extinct species. Does anyone know it?
Non-extinct. Alive.
Here, I'm going to teach you a new word. It's called extant. E-X-T-A-N-T, extant. Yeah, so extant species are ones that are not extinct yet. Or current species. But extinctions are happening all the time, right? As new species arise, new old species are going extinct just through like regular old competition and et cetera. That we're going to call the background extinction rate. So normal background extinction rate, I don't have a number for you off the top of my head, but species are just going extinct, every year, every few years, however many species go extinct just through the natural processes. Yeah?
A couple years ago, the last white rhino or black rhino died.
Oh yeah, those poor rhinos. Getting like hunted for their horns and stuff. But there are periods of time where this background extinction rate is exceeded by quite a bit. Does anyone know what those periods of time are called? Mass extinctions, yeah. There have been 5 mass extinctions. When we look back, we use the term history often when we're talking about like biology. Here we're not talking about like the social sciences version of history where it has to be written down. We're talking about like in geologic past or the history of the earth type thing. So what does anyone know any of the causes for any of these mass extinctions? Yeah?
Sometimes asteroids.
Asteroids, yeah. Psh.
You should make him pray.
What? Not my best dinosaur, but that's okay. There we go. Meow. Okay, what's another one?
Natural disasters like volcanoes and floods.
Yeah, volcanoes are actually caused, I think, about 3 of them. Whole bunch of volcanoes, yeah? This mass extinction, I don't think any of the mass extinctions were caused primarily just by floods. But yeah, big volcanic activity, like totally changed everything. Killed off, lots and lots of things died with mass extinction, with volcanic activity. One of them was triggered by the asteroid impact that killed off the dinosaurs.
I think the asteroid.
There's one more out there. Somebody in my other class period got it, and I was super shocked.
Ice Age?
Nope.
Earthquake?
Nope.
Asteroid destroyed.
Okay, here's the third one, which has caused mass extinctions in the past: oxygen. Yeah, when organisms first evolved photosynthesis, there was like no oxygen in the atmosphere, and they're like, oh, so we will just make oxygen as a byproduct, no big deal. And they just started making oxygen, and eventually it got to the point where the oxygen levels were so high it was toxic to all these animals and killed off all of these living things. So you've evolved from one of the things that survived that mass extinction. Anyway, there is a 6th mass extinction. Going on right now. Who's causing the 6th mass extinction?
Humans.
Humans, yep. That little gingerbread man. Humans are causing the 6th mass extinction. And in fact, our current extinction rate is over 1,000 times greater than the background extinction rate because of human activity. So I'm gonna turn you loose for a few minutes, and just in your table group, I want you to discuss what humans are doing that causes those extinctions.
Global. That's the answer. We're also murdering all the rhinos.
There's multiple causes. Talk about it with your group.
We're murdering the rhinos. That's a big one.
But also something to where definitely making plastics and we actually
Destroying habitats. We're killing the chinchillas. Don't forget about the chinchillas. Chinchillas.
Destroying habitats.
Dude, chinchillas? Dude, chinchillas are so cute. I heard that they're super soft. I think they actually had some chinchillas in like the Fairbanks. Oh, yeah. I remember that. That's a few years ago. Do you like chinchillas?
Poaching, yeah.
You've had chinchillas? Dude, that's chinchillas are the best.
Just jot down a couple of them so you can remember. Okay.
I can just imagine
That's about
We have found a way to have but now we're running out. Because of global warming can't keep up. And also the population. Too many babies.
All right, let's bring it back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. We'll start with the groups on the side. Chris, do you have a suggestion? Destroying habitat. Oh, you picked a big one. Good. Oops. All right. Habitat loss. So hold on, we're going to stick on this one for a second. Because habitat loss is so important. In fact, it's probably the #1 killer of species is habitat loss. And there's a couple of different ways habitat loss can influence things. One is we can like straight up like destruction. And here, destruction can be through a lot of different means, right? Here's my little bulldozer. He's gonna bulldoze over some trees. So you can bulldoze down some trees and put up a farm or a parking lot or whatever. That's one way that you can destroy like habitat. It could be destroyed through other means. We can talk about that. But another way, even if you have some habitat left, that the habitat can be ruined or made less valuable for the species is fragmentation. What does fragmentation mean? Not mine, that's fracking. What is fragmentation?
Is that where like if you put you get a space of habitat and you like put a road through it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
They're like, you guys, half you play video games with like frag grenades, right? What's a frag grenade? It's a grenade that explodes into little fragments, right? So fragmentation here is just breaking something up into little tiny bits. And the same thing happens with habitats, right? If I was to plan out a city neighborhood or something like that, right? And I know that a fox requires 100 acres in order to survive, right? And so I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I have enough habitat here for the fox. And so I give him like 20 acres over here and 30 acres over there, another 40 here, another 10 here. Like, is that fox going to be able to, is this equal, like area wise, it might equal 100 acres, but is it as good as a big like 100-acre chunk? Why not?
it's gonna be scared to cross.
It's not gonna want to leave its area.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not a good habitat for the fox because in order to like hunt in all these areas, it has to cross between them, right? And it might get like hit by a car. There might be dogs. There might, all this sort of thing. The edges of a habitat are really bad too because as you get to the edges, you get like all these invasive species. You have more diseases. You have like hunting and predators and dogs and all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot safer for organisms to have big chunks of land to live in, right? That's one of the reasons why when they put it like a road through, they'll try and put it around the big wildland areas as opposed to right through the middle. So fragmentation is an important way as well. Okay, so habitat loss, definitely a key one, yeah?
Plastic straws.
Plastic straws. So I'm gonna lump that in as pollution. I mean, people who like get in a twist about plastic straws, like their hearts are in the right place, but honestly, like it's not really the straws. Like it's a pretty small. Straws are a pretty small like component of plastic pollution, and like there's a lot bigger things than like individuals just drinking out of their McDonald's cup. Like that's not gonna make all the pollution. Plus, we in America, like the plastic lobbies and the big corporations have convinced you that it's your fault when the plastic ends up outside, right? When in reality, it's also the people who make the plastic's fault, right? If they didn't make a bunch of plastic, like waste containers, like it wouldn't be there to end up in the environment anyway. So there's some shared responsibility there. Can we stick on pollution for a second? Another type of pollution, so there's like plastics and stuff. So plastics kill animals, but it's probably not gonna make any go extinct. Are there some other types of pollution out there? Like what? Like what?
Like the fertilizer.
Air pollution, yeah. Fertilizer can act as a pollution. That's what I'm drawing here. Is you can have farmland where they fertilize it, and the fertilizer runs off into the river, and then you'd think fertilizer would be good for plants. It is. It grows lots of algae in the river though, and then the algae dies and it sucks all the oxygen out. So it's actually pretty bad. Do you guys have other ideas for pollution?
Toxic, radioactive,
Metal.
Radioactive waste.
Like,
Heavy metals. Yeah, no, heavy metals act as pollutants too. Yeah, wait, hold on. Shh, guys. Can you say that one again? Hey, way too many conversations. They use water. Yeah, that type of pollution actually occurs like here in Fairbanks, right? Have you guys like seen the river downstream of the power plant in the middle of the winter? Like there's no ice on it. It's 20 below and there's no ice on that river because they suck water out of the river, use it to cool off their like thing and like help drive their turbines and recycle their water that they're using to drive their steam turbines, and then they put it back in the river and it warms it way up. So that's called thermal pollution. Yeah, it doesn't have to just be like
carbon pollution, like burning fossil.
Yeah, carbon dioxide is considered pollutant. Yeah.
I went to that power plant as like a little field trip,
Oh, cool.
and when the water goes in, when it comes out, it's 20 degrees in temperature. It's 20 degrees hotter than it was when it came in.
Yeah. And 20 degrees isn't a huge amount, right? But they're doing it enough that it's actually warming the river enough so it doesn't freeze right after it. Yeah. Pesticides, yep. Those can add up. So there's lots of different pollutions out there, and we'll talk more about them. But okay, any other major ways that humans can cause extinction that some groups have? Yeah. Poaching. Okay, so the big group that'll include things like poaching, poor hunting regulations, fishing, when those sorts of things, is overexploitation. Overexploitation, yeah. So a lot of species have fallen to this, like the dodo bird, right? If we can draw a dodo. Yeah. I didn't do it so well. Anyway, there's my dodo bird. Not my best dodo bird. But a lot of like bird species, you don't have to go and hunt the bird and shoot the birds themselves, right? You can just go and steal all their eggs. If you do that for a couple of years, like all of a sudden they're extinct. Like, oh, where'd they go? Because eggs are delicious. Poaching or like over hunting has definitely occurred. Fishing is a big one. Like what a lot of people do is this isn't like a big problem in Alaska. But yeah, they'll take sharks, right? And they'll capture sharks. A big boat here. Yeah, they catch the shark, and what's really horrible thing is a lot of people are like, oh, shark fin soup. So shark fins are really valuable, so they'll like catch the shark and like cut off the fin and then like throw the rest back, and they're like, oh, we don't need the rest of it. Yeah, so it's super wasteful, right? And it's all these unsustainable like fishing practices. Some fisheries are totally wiped out, right? Because they were over harvested. So it's something to watch out for. Alaska has to be careful about that. The final thing about overexploitation, it's not just industrialized like things, right? This has been happening throughout history. When you look at the fossil record, there used to be like mammoths and mastodons in North America, right? And then we see that people showed up, right? Can you put that on, please? We see that people shows up, and then all of a sudden, within people showing up, within 1,000 years, like all of the mastodons are gone, right? There used to be this big armadillo thing in North America, right? And again, people show up, and then it just disappears from the fossil record. Like, and there's good evidence that people use their like shells as houses. It was a giant armadillo in North America that used to like wander around and stuff, and then. Oh yeah, we'll look it up at some point. My point is that it doesn't have to be an industrialized like hunting practice or fishing practice. Like people have been exploiting species for a long time. Okay, let's come with a couple more. We got pollution, habitat loss, overexploitation. What else might cause extinctions?
Too many cities.
Too many cities. Yeah, we're gonna put that under like habitat loss. Yep.
I mean, this kind of goes under pollution, but just the classic global warming stuff.
Yeah, we can put in climate change. Climate change raises the temperature of places generally. Can change weather patterns, right? So rain where it wasn't before. What climate change really changes is the biomes, right? So we learned all about the biomes. If you change one biome into another, is that species that's adapted to the desert gonna do well in like when the biome changes? Like probably not, no. So unless it has a way to like shift its range, it could go extinct. Yeah. Yeah, just take the pass wherever it went. Okay, one final one, which is kind of related to all these, invasive species. What's an example of invasive species besides humans? Yeah. What was that? Vetch? Vetch. Yeah, we have vetch just outside here. It's that like little pea vine type thing. I'm not drawing it very well. Has purple flowers. I think it's kind of pretty, but it is an invasive species. What's another example? Yeah. The what? The tiger clam. There's a zebra mussel. Is that the one you're thinking of? There might be a tiger clam. There's a lot of invasive species out there, right? Tiger, what do you got?
Wood beetles.
Oh, like the spruce beetles?
Yeah.
I didn't know those were invasive species.
Yeah.
I was just reading an article about them the other day. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure about this, but raspberry.
Raspberry bushes?
Yeah.
I
think
there are,
They've been all around my yard.
but there are wild raspberry bushes in Alaska, I think.
Okay.
But there are also like ones imported that aren't wild. So, the point is, why are invasive species making other species extinct?
They're rolling out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Start eating things.
I have another one for invasive humans.
Yeah, I said non-human ones. So, but why are they making them extinct? Yeah.
They take all the resources.
Yeah, they compete, right? So they compete local species.
Like one of the people said somewhere back there, they roll up and start eating.
Yeah, so they don't have to necessarily eat them, right? They could, that might be part of it, but usually it's because they outcompete, right? They take more territory, they take more prey from the other species, that, etc. Yeah.
Resource loss.
Resource loss?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna lump that in with invasive species or habitat. Yeah.
They don't have any natural predators in the area.
Yeah, invasive species don't have natural predators. Nothing's adapted to eat them, or they have defenses that the predators can't handle. So it's a big issue. We'll talk more about them in a bit. Specifically, I want you guys again as a group to brainstorm some ideas, like what do we do about these things? So so I'm going to give you a couple minutes to talk about it as a group. What are some solutions for each one of these that we, like as humanity, can implement?
Some of the systems are the systems within 1,000 years, you have to re-evolve. You say so, I don't understand. To re-evolve.
What do we do?
We just build a sequence.
Okay. I know what
How about we kill off half of the species? How about we kill off half the
I'll make them go. Have them all go to Bernie.
It's like renal disease when we plant
But it's okay, it's fair.
What was that? So solutions.
They got stations, they can figure out.
Okay, we're gonna come back together in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, who had a good idea that they want to share? Yes. No, we're gonna keep humans around. I veto that one by myself. Yes. Yeah.
Me?
Yes.
Okay. We can solve any of the world's problems with wolves and water. Name a problem.
Okay, we'll move on. Don, you have an idea? Guys, hey, let's come up with a good list.
Either one, we're in the matrix, so we should reboot the system, or two, develop a method for price, like the secret that
Okay. Guys, hey, like I don't mind a few of those silly answers, especially when you're talking about them in a group, but they are eating into our time to get to the real answers, right? So let's keep it focused.
How you were talking about over globalization?
Yep.
Instead of like just taking one part of an animal, we could like use all of the resources it gives us.
Yeah. So how are you going to make sure that happens?
I'm not too sure. Like
Okay, yeah, so 2 parts to this. You need the law, right, which says like, hey, you cannot waste a bunch of the animal, right? And the second part is it needs to be enforced. As you said, you need to punish the people who don't do it, right? So do we do this in Alaska?
Yes.
Yes, we have hunting laws, like you're not allowed, wanton waste of an animal is illegal, right? When you take an animal, you have to take neck meat, rib meat, all that sort of stuff. You can leave, the entrails, that's fine. You don't have to use it, right? If Fish and Game catches you and you have shot an animal and just eaten the eyeballs out of the moose and walked away, what are they gonna do? They're gonna severely punish you, yeah, for like wanton waste like that. They'll throw the book at you. They'll fine you. You might go to jail depending on how bad it is. They'll take away your like airplane or boat or ATV. But what if it's just like the antler spread is just 2 inches too short or something like that? What do you do then?
Judgment call. Robin Purpose.
Well, what happens if you shoot an animal illegally, accidentally, and it's already dead? You hide the body? No. You what do you do?
You call them and say that I messed up.
Yeah, you immediately call them or take it into Fish and Game, and they will probably not take away all your equipment because you self-reported, right? If you self-reported like, oh yeah, I just shot 50 caribou, oops, sorry. No, they'll still be mad at you, right? But you still have to, guys, shh, listen. You still have to harvest the animal, right? You may have to forfeit the meat and they'll donate it to charity, right? But it's a lot better than getting a giant fine and getting in trouble. So, but guys, this is important. It doesn't do anything to have a law but then not enforce it, right? There's an international law against whaling, right? You're not allowed to like go out and like whale a whole bunch, but Japan goes out and whales a whole bunch. Like, whose job is it to go like punish them or enforce that, right? There's no international cops out there on the high seas.
America.
New renewable resources, like find new resources that are renewable.
Yes, let's do that one. Okay, so Fairbanks, we use coal power. It's actually a pretty good solution because we have the Healy, like coal mine nearby and stuff like that. It's not going to work forever. At some point, we're going to have to transition off of that. What are some other energy sources that we can, like, not necessarily us, but just in general, that can be used instead of coal? Yeah.
The sun.
Okay, so you can have solar. You can like set up solar panels, right? What are some other renewable ones? Nuclear is not renewable, but it actually, we can talk about it for a sec. I'm not going to put it down because it's not renewable, but the big advantage of nuclear is it gives you lots and lots of power. You can have like one nuclear power plant for like 5, coal power plants. It also does not provide any carbon dioxide emissions, right? And it technically, it actually has lower radiation emissions than even a coal power plant. There's a reason why cancer rates are higher in Fairbanks, and it's because we have coal power plants, right, for lung cancer. Yeah, there's a chance of nuclear like disaster, but it's pretty low. US is pretty good at managing that. And yeah, there's nuclear waste issues. You got to dig a hole in the ground, put the nuclear waste somewhere. The big issue is it's finite. There is not an unlimited supply of nuclear like radiation. But what are some other renewable ones? Yeah. Yeah, the ore that they use in power plants is not explosive, right? Even Chernobyl, it was a steam explosion. It wasn't a nuclear explosion, right? So they're not gonna like, it's not gonna go nuclear like nuclear bomb style thing. Yeah.
Wind energy.
Wind, yeah, we can do wind. Windmills, what do you got? Hydro, what do you got?
Same what you said.
Hydro. I'm trying to draw a dam. I'm not good at drawing dams. Hydroelectric. Okay. Yeah. What is it? Biofuels? Yeah, biofuels are renewable.
Would sunlight be renewable because the sun will eventually run out, therefore it shouldn't be renewable?
Yeah, well, and the sun also makes the wind go and makes the water go uphill. Like, so really, these are all indirectly solar. Yeah.
The sun is powerful.
Yeah, if you get too nihilist and too far into the future, it really doesn't matter because like there's a heat death for the universe and whatever. So, okay, guys, bring it back, please. There are some downsides to these, right? Which one of these?
Cold fusion.
No, cold fusion. Yeah, it'd be nice to get that. Which one of these provides the most energy in general? Solar, wind, or hydro?
Hydro.
Hydro provides quite a bit. Guys? And can you pull your mask up, please? Bluebell? Thank you. Hydro provides quite a bit. Are there downsides?
Yeah.
Yeah, it destroys like the river habitat, right? it turns it into a giant lake. It displaces people and other animals that were living there. Water evaporates more quickly. You know, salmon can't get upstream, all that sort of stuff. It can be disruptive. What about wind?
Not always windy.
It's not always windy. What about solar? Not always sunny. Yeah. What type of power is the most lethal per kilowatt hour? Does anyone know?
Hydro?
It's one of the coal ones.
It's
Cold.
yeah.
The renewable?
The wind?
Wind. It's actually wind. Just because setting them up is really dangerous. Like people die all the time from falling off these things and
Also
like
birds.
setting them up. Yeah, and they're dangerous for birds. Although we're getting better at it. If you
They're so low.
if you paint one of the windmill arms a different color, it's easier for birds to see. And sometimes you can add noisemakers, and that helps keeps birds away too. But yeah, these are really dangerous for birds.
And the wings on the windmills only last about a year, and you can't renew them, so you have to bury them in a lane.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I do know they're working on like new technology with that too. But yeah, they wear off quite a bit. There's a bit of quite a bit of erosion. So just something to think about. Like their coal won't last forever, and we do need to transition away. But there are pros and cons for each other renewable one. Okay, what else can we do besides changing or enforcing hunting and fishing laws and renewable resources? Any other ideas? Yeah.
We can stop expanding into habitats as much, like stop cutting down, stop putting reservoirs. Adapt the way that we do before.
Yes. One way to think of that, guys, is reduced footprint. And footprint here doesn't mean like an actual like footprint. What it means is resources such as space, space, energy, water, etc. Right? So as a human being, you take up a certain amount of space with your housing and your school and your cars and your roads and your stores, right? You take up a certain amount of energy, right? And you take up a certain amount of water, all that sort of stuff. Some people take more than others, right? As a general rule, if you live in a city, do you take more energy, water, and space, or less?
Less.
Less. If you live in a city, right? You're like in a big tall building, you're stacking lots of people, you take hardly any space, right? Less energy to travel around if you can just like walk down to the bodega down the block or whatever. Here in Fairbanks, I have to drive for 15 minutes to get to the store, right? Like that's a lot more energy being used just to feed my family. Same deal with water. So the idea being that the more we can reduce our footprint, the better off everyone will be. Okay, any other ideas for preventing extinction?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you think Bigfoot's real?
No. How can we? Yeah.
Maybe like reduce the amount of water ones somehow.
Population thing. Yeah, we kind of covered the population thing. I'll skip it.
Biodegradable, like, tools or things you use for.
Yeah. So pollution controls. I'll get back to pollution in a second. The one I want to talk about is habitat. Hey, can you guys quit throwing things, please? How do we protect habitat?
Keep it how it is.
Yeah, how? How do we do that?
Planting.
What are some things we can do to protect habitat? Yeah.
Natural reserves.
National reserve or national parks. U.S. is pretty cool because they were one of the first places to actually do national parks. If you go to like, I don't know, European country or something, they don't have national parks, right? Any park they have is basically some like Lord Fauntleroy's ancestral like hunting grounds that the peasants weren't allowed to like build, farm. And that's what they have for a park, and it's like unmanaged land. They don't have like what's truly wild like we have here. And this includes national forests, things like that. Comment? Yeah. In order to combat that fragmentation, you can have animal corridors. Does anyone know what an animal corridor is?
No.
Okay, so we don't see them a lot in Alaska because we don't have huge highways, we have pretty small ones. But if you build a road through some kind of wilderness, you can reduce the fragmentation impact by building a like overpass or underpass for animals. Sometimes they're like overpasses. You'll see them like this. And so you'll have like, trees over here on this side. You'll have woods over here. Right? But then you'll have like a grassy strip that you build up over the road, or it'll be like a tunnel. You'll go over a tunnel, and it's just grass or just emptiness going through. And that way an animal can cross, especially like a small animal, like again, armadillo or a skunk, right, in lower 48. Even deer, like things like that can get hit by cars and killed. They'll really quickly figure out, oh, I'll just pass through this way. And they're fine, they don't get hit by the car. So it helps the mobility of animals between patches of land. So we're getting better at building these in our roads, and they're super important in some places. Okay, what about invasive species? What's our solution there? Kill them? I would, yeah, Tiger?
Quality control when shipping items.
Yeah, I would argue that it's way better to prevent than to just try and like stop invasive species once they start. So, kill, prevent. A big, guys, we can try and kill all the vetch in interior Alaska. It'll take lots of people, lots of time. Let's just stop flipping the things around, okay? No, let's just stop throwing it. Greg, does that work? Okay. We can try and kill every single vetch plant out there, but all it takes is like a couple seeds, right? And it's just gonna spring right back because it grows so quickly. It's not, in my opinion, worth everyone's time to try and go out there and kill all the vetch. I think vetch is here to stay, it's already established, right? What can we do to prevent it from happening? Taggart, you mentioned boats, right? Boats can move things. So like, for example, when I was in Washington, they had a lake there, and there was a little station. Before you put a boat into the lake, you had to make sure it was dry. And when you took it out, you had to dry it off and make sure it was dry before you carted it off. The point being, they didn't want any invasive species that were aquatic living and basically sticking to the side of the boat, the hull of the boat, and being transferred one spot to another. Really big ships have ballast tanks, right? You know what ballast tanks are? They're like tanks that boats like fill up with water to like keep them balanced and keep them from riding too high. Chris, you awake? Sweet, head up please. So like ballast. That's how they got zebra mussels in the Great Lakes, is like a ship from like, I don't know, somewhere else, picked up the zebra mussel, came to the Great Lakes, and then like released its ballast and transferred the water. Yeah.
In the 40s, American boat sunk half of itself with those ballast tanks. It sank half of itself to where it tilted it and kept shooting at the boat. Like,
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
30
Like
miles
in
away.
the World War II? Oh, that's wild. There are some ships that are designed to like sink and flip sideways and stuff. What about, does anyone know where vetch came from? Where did vetch come from?
It was a scientist testing stuff, but he wasn't able to keep it safe or something.
So it was basically an accidental release, right, of like a domestic species. So if you have some sort of domestic species that's been domesticated, like, oh, I have a pet frog and I have to leave and I'm not allowed to take my frog with me, should I just release it outside? Why not? Because then it might become an invasive species, right? Same deal with like even like goldfish, tarantulas, turtles. You know, snapping turtles are an invasive species some places because people have like released them, right? So bringing in domestic, like wild cats, for example. Big issue in a lot of places. Comment?
In Florida, there's a lot of pythons going on there now.
Yeah.
And people would bring them in and just let them go because they're part of like a satanic ritual or something.
Yeah, so people brought in a python as, yeah, so they're invasive species now, but they were originally like a pet or domesticated, like purchased, brought in. So when you release them, even houseplants and stuff, try not to just like ditch them in, you know, outside. They could start spreading. So just be aware. Cool. Last thing I want to talk about is bioremediation.
Don't know what that means.
You don't know what's going on.
What does bio mean?
Like,
What does it mean to remediate something? Yeah, to fix. So this is, if you have a pollution of some kind, sometimes you can use living things to fix it. I did a study this last summer, actually. I'm working with a microbiologist. I spent 2 years actually now doing it. I've been working with a microbiologist at UAF, and what she did is somebody spilled a bunch of diesel fuel out in Caltag at the elementary school. So there was all this like soil that was contaminated with diesel fuel, which was pretty toxic. And so they scooped it all up and they took it out of town. And then she did a study where she planted willows, she planted grass, and then in some places she planted both willows and grass. In some places she just left bare. And she wanted to see like how quickly the diesel would biodegrade. What do you think of those 4 options? Which one degraded the diesel the quickest? It turns out willow and grass both worked really well. There's something in the willows. Basically, the theory is that the roots of the willow recruit microbes, and then those microbes break down the diesel more quickly than if you just like let the diesel sit there or exposed it to sunlight or something like that. So I actually went in and helped like figure out what microbes are in there. Cool. Don't have to turn these in until Friday, but hang on your notes.